Good morning. I'd like to call the public meeting to order. My name is Nick McCrae, Chair of the Toronto Community Housing Corporation Board's Building, Investment, Finance and Audit Committee. Welcome to the public session of today's committee meeting. Apologies for the delayed start. We're pleased to get going now. Let me begin with an acknowledgement that the land each of us is on as we hold this virtual meeting is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. During today's public session, 13 reports are brought forward for the committee's approval, and 4 reports are brought forward for the committee's information. I'd like to start off with a poll for conflicts of interest. Would any members of the BIFAC committee please indicate any agenda item in which they have a conflict of interest together with the nature of this conflict? No conflicts of interest were declared for any agenda item. I'd like to call for an approval of the public agenda items and ask for items to be held. Go ahead, John.
Mr. Chair, I would like to hold, just for purposes of voting, items 9A, items 9B, and then C through H, which can be considered as a group, and that's it.
Any other items to be held? I'd like to hold 7B. With that, can I have an approval of the agenda? Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Business arising. Oh, it only held. So I guess we'll go to the first held item, which is, I believe, number 7B, which is the strategic procurement update, cooperative purchasing. I'd like to, if you don't mind, maybe a few minutes to sort of update the committee on the process, the rationale, and sort of next steps that are happening in that area.
Absolutely, through the chair to the committee. This report is part of the procurement transformation journey procurement and also legal services have embarked on. This is to update the committee the progress on the cooperative purchasing strategy we're contemplating, especially in terms of the buying groups and piggybacking vendors or records and also joint procurement. This is really to align with the procurement practice of our shareholder, City of Toronto, as well as the leading practices in industry. So in terms of the benefits of this 4 procurement measures, essentially is to really leverage the volume purchasing power as well as treaty compliance and the vendor records is primarily for facility management as well as IT services. So in terms of next steps, the 2 teams have gone through extensive due diligence in interviewing and also discussion with groups such as Connected GPO, OECM, and also VOR bodies, including Supply Ontario and the Ministry of Government Services. We also have been working really closely with City of Toronto to learn their practice and then also lessons learned from their procurement journey they embarked about a few years ago. We also will be working really closely with external counsel to review and also refresh the approval process, the governance, as well as the procurement policy process and procedure, with the aim to incorporate all the buying groups and piggybacking to ensure treaty compliances as well. It's just a high-level update of this briefing note. If the committee have any questions, I can turn it over to the two project leads, Joanne Byrne-James, and also our legal counsel, Robert McNutt, to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee members? I have a question. In terms of the possible financial impact, is there an ability to estimate what benefit this will have in terms of pricing or financial outcomes, or simply by increasing the availability of methods of procurement, we expect over time to perform better? Is there, or is it possible to estimate, or is it sort of we'll find out as we go along? This just provides more options.
Chair, at the very high level, I would say probably between 15 to 20%. So from different areas, volume purchasing power to leverage on that synergy. The other piece is also the efficiency and also effectiveness of the time less spent from the internal procurement teams and also business divisions. Primarily will be, for example, on some of the IT contracts, the VORs we can leverage, either from the city or from OECM or even from Supply Ontario. The other piece is also in terms of leveraging the better pricing. For example, for our janitorial supplies and for our office supplies, we have some major contract we can tag on through the city and also through OECM or generic GPO. Right now, our spend for supplies, building supply officers, on the average on annualized basis around $8 to $9 million. With that arrangement, potentially can come down around 10 to 15%. But as it's work in progress. Once we finalize those contribution agreements and we enter into those VORs, we will bring back savings in the subsequent quarterly reporting back to the committee and the board.
Look forward to that, and obviously over time, being able to quantify and report back some of those benefits would be helpful for the committee. Yes.
If there's an example of this change in the natural gas, is that the kind of thing that we're buying through the city rather than, is that one example of what these may improve?
Absolutely. So right now we're on the city's joint procurement group. So every time when the city decides to go out, our teams are notified and we will work with the business units to explore the feasibility of tagging onto those projects prior to going out to the public competition.
And can you also identify going forward perhaps some of the restrictions that we have imposed on us through the province that requires us to do things in a certain way that may not be financially in the best interest of the corporation?
For that, I will defer to Hanan, our Senior Director of Procurement, to make some comments. Recently, she has been working with the province, especially Supply Ontario, to explore different options for TCHC.
Thank you, Lily. Yeah, in answer to that question, Supply Ontario is trying to centralize all the procurement so that it can reduce the price points. However, also because TCHC is not a provincial or OPS entity, as far as I'm aware, the non-OPS entities can adjust the contracts accordingly to match what our terms and conditions are, and our agreements would reflect what we need in terms of scope of work. Yeah, so I think that addresses the question, but let me know if it doesn't.
I was particularly thinking of the previous conversation we had around insurance issues. So,
yeah, we would have
which restricts us in a certain way.
It would be up to us to adjust according to our needs, because non-OPS entities can go with their own policies and their own agreements, as far as I understand, yeah.
Specifically for insurance, though, Director Smith, we may not be able to change it. I believe that's legislated as part of the Housing Service Act. Yeah.
But I guess the question is, is there room for us to raise that issue, because it is a financial impact on the corporation, and hopefully government bodies would want us to save money, and so we need to figure out a strategy to raise that issue with the with the province and probably through the Association of Municipalities, which I'm sure every municipality is facing those financial struggles as well.
Absolutely, through, or even through ANFA, right, the nonprofit housing provider association, so, and various other advocacy channels.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll ask for a motion to receive that report. Thank you, Brian. Second, all in favor? Carried. We'll move to the next item, 9A, and I believe we have a deputant for that item, so welcome.
Yeah, before you, you'll see a microphone with a button at the bottom. When you press that, we can hear you. You've got 5 minutes for your deputation, and you can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, committee members. For the record, my name is Sandy Annunziata. I am the principal at Para Proforma Consulting, located at 111 Niagara Boulevard, Fort Erie, Ontario. Mr. Chair, board members and staff, thank you for your attention to this important matter and the opportunity to work with you in addressing this concern. I will state for the record that I've done my best to omit the names of identifiable individuals and private sector companies, but this does involve a procurement matter that I feel compelled to raise in an effort to make more transparent the important work of this committee. All of my material has been gathered from public documents available on multiple websites. For anything else, I fully understand my right to access documents through freedom of information legislation and plan on exercising that resource. Unfortunately, I'm not privy to confidential documents that may shed light on the concerns that I raise here. My intention is to raise awareness, not impugn anyone's reputation or integrity. Respectfully, a situation has been brought to my attention where a successful bid has been awarded. It was not the lowest bid. While I fully understand that in certain procurements, lowest bid is not the only criteria, but in this situation, I raise two issues. Number one, why should the taxpayers of this city pay millions of dollars more for a project when they shouldn't have to? And number two, the competency, the relevant experience, and skill set of those making those decisions sometimes needs to be questioned in a thoughtful but sometimes provocative manner. Doing so encourages transparency and accountability. I'll begin with the latter issue as I feel it's more systemic in nature, while the former, wasting taxpayers' money, is the ultimate consequence of this decision. The Procurement Award Committee charter has been modeled after its parent piece of policy, the City of Toronto Procurement Processes Policy, January 2017. In Section 12 of that policy, under Evaluation Team, the evaluation team shall include division staff members with the relevant experience to evaluate bidders of proponents' submissions. Our first issue is of deep concern. We contend that throughout the 2023 year, the Procurement Awards Committee was not capable of filling its charter responsibilities due to the unprecedented number of position vacancies, interim appointments, new hires, staff turnover, political turnover, governance restructuring, policy reforms, and in our opinion, low bench strength. We have questions concerning the makeup of the PAC during the 2023 year and whether the PAC's evaluation responsibilities were impacted by critical position vacancies and a shuffling of the deck at key positions not necessarily qualified in matters of procurement. But don't take my word for it. Simply recount what this committee was saying as early as January 2023. Impacts were being felt as articulated in the January 27, 2023 public meeting minutes of the Building Investment Finance and Audit Committee, this committee. Quote, Mr. Meagher was available to answer questions of the BIFAC Highlights of the discussion include: the committee noted that there are several outstanding action items on the list related to procurement from almost a year ago and asked for an update on their status. It was noted that with the resignation of the former chief financial officer, there has been added pressure and workload for senior leadership in finance, which has limited their ability to report back on matters listed on the action item list in a timely manner. End quote. I will submit, it wasn't just the CFO. There are example after example of low bench strength throughout the public minutes of almost every committee. But with respect to procurement, we do not believe the threshold set out in the PAC charter, specifically with respect to committee governance, makeup, relevant experience of members, was sufficient to meet a standard that encouraged a fair and transparent procurement process. Another troubling example is the position of Senior Director of Procurement Strategy. So vital is this position that this individual's authority is embedded in every procurement recommendation. In fact, out of the 6 stated reasons for recommendations, the first one being that the Senior Director of Procurement has recommended the award as being conducted in a fair and transparent manner and in compliance with the terms of a competitive procurement call and applicable procurement policies, procedures, and protocols. That is a powerful endorsement statement. In our opinion, it is no longer impactful because of the 2023 climate of absentee leadership in that position. To include it on any award recommendation report to this committee, we believe is disingenuous. We cannot find any attendance of this individual in almost every committee meeting minutes where a tender has been awarded. The only language we found was a Canadian architecture quote in September 12, 2022, the minutes of a September 8, 2022 BIFAC meeting, and a December 8, 2022 Board of Directors meeting. The individual that held the title of Senior Director of Procurement Strategy was Albert Koch. The next time we see that title attached to a name isn't until minutes of a June 23, 2023 BIFAC report, BIFAC 2023-71 Strategic Procurement Update, authored by Lily Chen, with a footnote of staff contact, Joanne Bourne-James, Senior Director of Procurement, acting. Her current position is Manager Sourcing.
Mr. Annunziata, you're past your 5 minutes. If you could wrap up your comments.
Yes, with indulgence, can I seek?
I'd like to suggest that we could extend that.
Do you mind saying that again, Brian? Didn't catch that.
Pardon?
Sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
I was suggesting we should extend this for
Yeah,
a couple of minutes.
one more minute if you don't mind, given we're past the time, but another minute to sort of make concluding thoughts.
And then we may have questions.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if I can wrap this up quickly. I'll do my best. The PAC committee is responsible for evaluating bid submissions and identifying qualified contractors, vendors in the normal course of proceedings of any council, committee, or board of directors meeting. We would expect to see who the members are, who is in attendance, any other participants, if quorum was achieved, how members voted, and we believe those minutes should be made public. It speaks to the competency of the PAC and its responsibility in upholding the values of its charter. Presently, that reporting mechanism is woefully inadequate in providing accuracy, transparency, and accountability. The next issue I would like to raise concerns the propriety of the pre-awarding process. In a Stage 3 process for the RFP at 33 Coatesworth, members of the PAC Evaluation Committee interpreted the submissions of a proponent and voted to disqualify that proponent. The proponent vigorously disagrees with that assessment and interpretation and the damaging effect of being characterized as unqualified within the scope of the project. Within long-standing procurement process policy and with a reasonable opportunity for a competitive process that may have resulted in considerable savings for the taxpayers of the city, why wasn't the proponent given the opportunity to cure a submission or expand on an answer that may have been ambiguous? If the evaluators question the veracity of an answer submitted during the qualification process, why wasn't that consideration given?
All right, Mr. Annunziata, I understand we're having some technical issues right now with the live feed. Can you give us a minute just while we sort this out?
My feed is not live.
No,
Okay, it's dead.
a little aggressive.
Swear one again?
All right.
Can we make use of our time while we're waiting, or not?
I'd like the discussion to be on the live.
He's talking about
Wondered whether the submission had been forwarded so we could have it.
Oh, it's just verbal.
Windows.
Oh, I'm asking if,
There's another.
Yeah, I'm sure you can, well, you can ask, yeah.
for submission available.
Absolutely, yes. And I thought, I apologize, I thought I emailed it to Sonia, but unfortunately it got kicked back. So I wanted the committee to have a copy of it, and I'll make sure that the committee does get a copy of it.
Okay, let's open for questions. Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation. And so I gather that your company submitted a bid for the Coatsworth Crescent project, facade reconstruction.
I'll clarify, it's not my company. It's
A company-
yes, it's a company that I certainly represent their interest.
With whom you are associated? Okay.
Correct.
And during that process, was there the company with which you were associated was deemed to be not qualified? Is that correct? Correct. And for what reason was it deemed to be not qualified?
Not sure. Part of the issue that we're having is we can confirm that no one from the PAC, from BIFAC, or TCHC has had any contact with the proponent since the closing of the bid on June 3rd. That's very troubling. And despite attempts to inquire about how they did, unfortunately, they received a standard automated response, no information to share. Now, the only way they learned that they were not the successful bid was when this agenda appeared October 27th. So just for context, for 4 months, having their bonding and security financing locked up, their labor and materials committed for the potentiality of a successful bid, they never received an update. So I hope that answers your question, that they have not.
Did they reach out to the procurement people at TCHC to?
They did, and they received the automated response, no information to share.
Was that literally an automated response, or or are you saying they actually heard somebody say, sorry, I have nothing to share?
I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to staff and suggest it was an automated response.
Okay.
I'm sure staff, if given the opportunity to speak with them, would have been a little bit more polite, but.
Has the company with which you're associated won contracts with Toronto Community Housing in the past?
I'm not quite sure of that information. I do believe they were successful in a January 2022
Okay.
bid. But
And was it similar work?
it was similar work, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
And so is it safe to say that the company with which you're associated was taken by surprise by being disqualified?
Very much so. Very much so, yeah. And I will share that it was a considerably much lower amount than the winning qualified bid.
The winning, if I'm not mistaken, the winning bid amount has not been, oh, it's here. Of course, it's here, yes. Okay, it's right here in public, right. It's also, we see some private. Okay, so it was considerably lower too. Was it 10, 15, 20% lower?
I don't know what's proprietary. I don't know what I can share in this forum, but I would say it was millions lower.
The bid award, as published in public, is 14.692 million. So it was considerably lower than that.
Correct.
And, okay, I get the picture. Thank you for your deputation. I don't have any further questions.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, my request is please make your submission available to us. I know you said you had a bounce back when you tried, but if you make it available to staff, then it can be circulated to the committee.
I will circulate it, and I will leave with one final comment that I respectfully would ask this committee to undertake 2 specific actions following my delegation. One is to defer any ratification of agenda item 9A until I believe the senior director and welcome Madam Director, in your new position, your new role, has had a chance to oversee this particular procurement, because we believe there was some improprieties with the awarding of this particular procurement. My second ask would be to commit to undertake a thorough review of the questions I've raised respecting the process and the personnel on the PAC for the entirety of 2023. This may be a case where staff turnover, changes in leadership, low bench strength impacted some of the quality of the decision-making of the PAC. But we would much rather solve those situations moving forward than have lingering doubt about some of the procurements of 2023. Those are my two asks of the committee. And again, I understand the role of the committee is oversight. It is not to rubber stamp every recommendation that comes before it, and for the benefit of the taxpayers of the City of Toronto, I would expect you to exercise that oversight responsibility. So thank you.
And thank you. We appreciate your deputation and bringing that forward. As it relates to the latter matter, the PAC review, I believe we review the PAC charter on an annual basis. If I could get some nodding of heads, okay. I think it'd be worthwhile for this committee to also review sort of the staffing at that time as well, in terms of as part of that annual review process. That's a good comment that is heard. Any other questions or comments for the deputant? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
So this item is a held item. So for discussion, any questions for 9A?
This is not an old building. This building was built in 1989, which is not that old. And so I'm just wondering, for what reason does it need this extent of upgrades? And is this common for a building of this, young age? I mean, we all remember 1989, right? I mean,
this building has a lot of work orders for brick falling. We have a brick facade issues, and then also with the geothermal exchange system is in deterioration. So it was identified as a prioritized project to be completed. And there's also a fair amount of energy savings for replacing the existing system to a new geothermal exchange system.
and what will those energy savings, what are they estimated to be?
I just got the information from the staff, and it's 58% of the energy savings.
And in terms of dollars, what is that going to be?
I asked that question too, so that's a good question. Through the chair, the rate, I was told that the rate fluctuates, so the metric is focusing on the energy consumption savings versus the utility cost.
Right, so how much does it cost to operate this building on an annual basis?
I don't have that information right now, but we can always pull it.
So, Mr. Chair, I would like to suggest that when procurement awards come to the committee, that there be a business case for us granting the award. So we're first of all, we've heard from a deputant who feels that the award is excessive. And secondly, I don't have any idea what the payback is for this investment with $14.5 million. And I think that every bid, every expenditure by this company for, this type of project should I mean, it should, as a baseline, say, how much energy is this building consuming a year? It's electricity and gas. I mean, it should be fairly easy to tally. And if we're saying 58% savings, what is it based on? Is it based on $1 million in costs a year or $1.5 million in costs a year? I mean, that's just basic information that I think should be provided to the committee. I don't have any further questions.
Yes.
Through the chair to the director, might I suggest that I just want to be conscious of what that investment would be to bring like another business plan with each award to this committee, and how that would implicate our resources? And would it suffice if we shared with the committee what were those specific criteria, like the questions that you're asking relative to this case, and we could outline what are the parameters, the framework under which the VAC and the PAC make those decisions, as opposed to, all the additional information or reframing it for this committee as well. I just suggest that from a really helping at all levels.
So we should know how much it costs to operate a building. We should know how much it costs to heat it and how much the electricity is. And then, I mean, we should have, somebody has it. It shouldn't even be that difficult to ascertain. And if we're being asked to spend $15 million on a building to fix it up, we should have some sort of idea as to, is that going to be paid back in 20 years or 15 years? I mean, that's basic business.
I think
We are a business.
where there's some energy savings, it would be helpful to understand those. As it relates to the overall piece of work, it's being identified as critical work that needs to get done in terms of the brick and the windows and being 30 plus years old. So in the sense like that is the case, that it is old, it's reached the end of its useful life, but where there's financial savings or financial implications or positive outcomes, I think that's a fair thing to quantify as part of the ask. So I don't think it's necessarily a reframing of the business case, but in scenarios where there is a positive financial element, can we quantify that or have an estimate, understanding that energy modeling from a go forward is also not a precise thing, but order of magnitude would be helpful.
Yeah, through the chair to the committee, I trust that as a member of PAC, that information, that is what is being assessed before that information comes to the PAC as well. So I was just trying to be cognizant of then what is the degree of the extent of the information that's brought to the committee that staff have already considered in making that award.
Any other questions, Brian?
With the serious questions that were raised by the deputant, I just wanted to ask what the consequences are to defer this.
If we wanted to defer this decision for, I assume, a review of the process in this case, is there any consequences as it relates to timing of the work or operation of the building or what have you?
Well, obviously, this job has been identified as a prioritized job in the capital planning. So we understand that there's deterioration to the systems and to the building facade. And it has been, tenders to the decision period for an extended period of time. We like to see it done, construction started ASAP. Strictly also, we also reflected that there is a significant energy savings in this project, and staff is going through the definite numbers right now, and then we're looking into providing it whenever we can. So.
I'm interested in, and perhaps this cannot be done in public session, with regards to the reasons why there was a disqualification for this particular vendor, and maybe that needs to be held for in camera, but it seems to me that's a significant, there could be a very good reason why they were excluded, but unless we know that, it's hard to decide on this question when there was significant, apparently significant money to be saved on this contract.
I'll go to Dara first and then to Naram.
So I just wanted to speak to some of the concerns that you heard from the deputant in relation to I think they were characterized as bench strength issues in relation to the role of the Procurement Award Committee. And I think there's some confusion from the deputant's comments as to the nature of the Procurement Award Committee. And I think there's been some conflation from the deputant's comments as between the Procurement Award Committee and the Evaluation Committee for an RFP. So with every RFP, TCHC establishes a team that will evaluate the proposals that are submitted in response to the RFP call. That's different from the procurement award committee. And so in this case, there would have been I'll speak generally, in any RFP, there will be an evaluation team that is struck to consider the quotes that are submitted in response to the RFP. It changes from RFP to RFP. It's not dependent on any specific position. They need to have, as the proponent indicated, an understanding of the nature of the work. That is the same for every RFP that we run. The Procurement Award Committee is a body that is established by the board through BIFAC in order to approve commitments on behalf of TCHC within a specific financial limit. It's comprised of the officers of TCHC. So the president, CFO, general counsel, myself, the chief operating officer, the senior director of procurement, and the chief people and culture officer. So with those positions through 2023, you heard from the deputant a concern with respect to a lack of bench strength. I don't know, Lily's, when did you come on? 23 or 22?
February 2023.
So you've heard from Ms. Chen. She came on in February 2023? And then we also had turnover at the chief CEO, president and CEO position in August. We did have Joanne Bourne-James until recently acting in the role of Senior Director of Procurement, but beyond those changes, which happened seamlessly at the PAC, the other positions, myself, Ms. Gavea, Ms. Schulman, we remained constant on PAC through the year. So there was not, I would submit, issues around bench strength at the PAC through 2023. That's not the group that would have evaluated the proposals on any RFP. We received the work of the teams that conduct that work, but the Procurement Award Committee, as it's constituted, has continued to meet through 2023 and has not been impacted by issues around turnover or lack of bench strength.
My question was not specifically with regard to that. Was I just wanting to understand the reasons why the specific submission or company that was disallowed. So I realize that may not be able to be discussed here, but to me, that's an important aspect in making this decision.
Yeah, I just wanted to try and clarify some of the information that the committee received from the deputant on the first point that he raised. There is, I believe, in the confidential material, some advice for the committee in relation to the disqualification decision specific to this matter. That should be the subject of an in-camera discussion if it's going to take place.
I agree with Brian, and I think to almost echo his point, which may have not come across, I don't think Brian's concern is a bench strength concern, for the record. I think we have confidence in the PAC, and that's always been the case. I think the request to hold this item to be discussed in camera, or a motion to move forward to hold and see it discussed in camera, is because it probably does merit a better understanding given the deputation that was put forward in front of us today. I think it's our duty, quite frankly, to actually do that. And I would agree with Brian, and I would support that motion.
Question of process. If we go back to in-camera, post the public session, do we have to come back to public to approve? If we so chose to approve it, would we have to come back to public to approve it today?
Certainly. There's one of two matters or approaches that the committee might take in relation to the matter. The matter is beyond the financial authority of the committee to award. So this matter would, in the normal course, even in the absence of the advice that the committee received from the deputant, have to refer this matter to the board for approval. So the committee could do one of two things, it seems to me. One is refer the matter to the board without a recommendation or with some other recommendation, either to, presumably to award, subject to the advice that it would receive in camera. And then have the additional questions it might have in relation to this matter addressed during the in-camera session. Having made the decision in the public session, it then wouldn't need to come back into public session today in order to confirm that decision at the end of the meeting, or hold the matter down, go into in-camera session, ask questions, come out of the in-camera session, and then confirm a decision at the end of the meeting today.
So my preference would be that we refer this to the board, given everyone, all the committee members are board members, that without a recommendation or without an approval, given it has to go to board approval anyways, we then, at the end of the public session, go back in camera, given we have a full in-camera session, we can discuss it in camera and then bring forward that discussion to the board when it goes for approval at the next board meeting, I believe next week or the week after. Thoughts from the committee members?
Mr. Chair, I would support that, and as we are referring this to the board for approval, I would like staff to come back with, a high-level assessment of the energy savings of the project. It doesn't, just a high level, what are the costs, what are the anticipated savings?
Be able to provide that for the board meeting on December 6th.
Yeah, and we can discuss a bit more of this in camera today. So if there's anything else anyone wants to raise in the public right now, we can do that, but remembering that we have a in-camera
My
session.
only question is, if we reach a different conclusion at the board meeting, what impact that has on delaying the project, so, but
Yeah. But yeah, we're referring it to the board without being approved, and as it needs ultimate approval of the board anyways. So that, I think, effectively creates the time to have that discussion before it goes for formal approval. So maybe call for a motion to refer this to the board, I guess on an unapproved basis, but just straight reference. Looking at the hands, carried. Thank you very much. Next item is, I believe, the grouping B? 9B. John, did you hold that item?
I did hold the item, Mr. Chair, thank you. And again, I just was wondering if staff has any further information on the anticipated energy savings for this project. This is only 16 units. It's a 2-story walk-up. And I'm just wondering what are the annual costs to heat this, I guess these buildings?
Through the chair, I don't have the information right now, but I can definitely get it from the staff shortly.
Okay. It mentions that this project is acting as a demonstration project. Some of the proposed systems, products, and techniques are not yet commonplace in the market and are reflected in the cost of construction. Presumably, that means we're paying a lot more than we otherwise would. What does it mean that it's a demonstration project?
Through the chair, I'm going to defer these questions to my colleague, which is also joining us online, and she's the Senior Director of Design Engineering. She should be able to provide a little bit more specifics to the questions that you asked for. And her name is Katerina.
Katerina, we're not able to hear you.
Great.
Still no. No. I'm going to suggest one of two things. Either that you try and rejoin the meeting and see if that helps, or alternatively, you may want to switch your audio to a phone connection. Dropping out and rejoining may be the
Why don't
quickest.
why don't we just go to the next, any other questions on this in terms of we'll just hold this until we have the staff member on the line.
It's fine.
Okay, we'll come back to it. 9C. go ahead.
Buildings comprise the East region?
I don't have the exact numbers, my apologies. I only know the OU's districts.
So
I can find out.
can we not get that quickly? Yeah.
Why are we awarding a 5-year contract?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, it's a 3+1+1. So typical contract term is maximum 5 years, but it's a fixed rate for 3 years and negotiable 2 additional years thereafter, based on TCHC's discretion.
So it's a 3-year contract,
Correct. 6 years, 3, and then 2 additional 1-year contracts.
and then sometime in the 3rd year,
Yep.
would we undertake another RFP?
We can, yeah. So it's
You
up
can, or you know, is that practice that you do that?
totally based on our discretion. So it depends on the market and how fluctuations in the supply are happening, and we make a decision business-wise as to whether we should take it back or not. Yeah.
Okay, so given the discussion that we had in the private session, it probably would be advisable, I mean, I would like as a committee to advise that in this particular area, we look at doing an we look at doing an RFP 2 years out for,
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
I would like to move that, I would like to make that as a motion and see if the committee can express that will, that we look at this sector in 2 years and issue another RFP.
I would soften it slightly to say, I'd ask management to come back and make a recommendation at that time in terms of whether they think it makes sense to RFP or not, given market conditions and so on, a couple of years out. I don't think it needs to be definitive, but either way, there's accountability to come back at that point on that decision.
Okay. All right.
Naram?
Just for clarity, in the 3+1+1, if we were to actually go forward formally with an RFP at 3, do we lose the option? I guess it's a two-pronged question. One, do we lose the options for the 1+1? 2, are the options at our sole discretion or both at the vendor and TCH's discretion?
Typically with the negotiated additional extension year, the extension option is only based on TCHC's discretion, not the vendor's. The vendor does have the right to negotiate costs though. So that's the only difference with the extension.
We had something like this on a different award recently where I asked the same question. And so do we legally, this might be a complicated question, but do we legally lose our ability to have the sole discretion if we then open up to a full RFP?
No.
No. We're confident.
It sort of feels figuratively as a sole, because if the proponent has the ability to negotiate price, there's obviously the ability to sort of have an impasse on price in terms
Well,
of.
if I look at it from the vendor's perspective, you just reopened it to RFP. Why would I honor, I mean, there's probably a contractual obligation, I understand, but is there a cause to say that you're not honoring your, part? You'd almost have to forego the one option and then go to an RFP, is the way I see it, but I could be.
But the price is negotiable on those extensions anyway, so to some degree, how much?
To some degree,
how much of an option
to some
is it?
degree, they have to prove costs. It's a little different than just to say, this is what we believe we should be able to charge. There is a difference there.
Any other questions on this matter?
Just for I can update on the original question from Director Campbell. I think we pegged the number in the East region at approximately 60 units or 60 buildings.
60 buildings, and I mean, I could ask the question for each of the rest of the contracts, but I'll not bother. What I would like to know is, how we made the assessment that the winning bidders would only be eligible to win an award on 2 regions each. And what number of buildings did that entail?
So through the chair, there are a total 137 buildings in the East region.
Okay, 137, okay. So my question was, how did we determine from an RFP procurement standpoint that winning bidders could only win for two regions? And I know it was based on capacity. Did we ask about the work capacity for the companies that were bidding? Because presumably, they have other customers other than TCHC.
So through the chair, we have had this, this is not a new contract, so we have been doing this contracts for the past so many years since TCHC is in place. And the recommendation by the staff to give a maximum of 2 areas to each vendor is based on historical experience with how they were managing the program, and that is a recommendation strictly based on the fact that, they want to make sure that the service is being done within a certain time frame, and that the reports are being submitted in a very timely manner to observe all the regulations for the fire life safety. So there's a lot of criteria that really built in by the staff's recommendation to make sure that we not just satisfy the capacity issues, we also have to satisfy the legislative requirements as well. And the the number of people that are available, because they need to go through a certain certification training as well.
Right.
Sorry, one second. Is it fair to say that this capacity review and the allocation of work by region and by sort of sizing is applicable through a number of the processes and tenders and vendors sort of across the procurement process? It's not an isolated situation to this type of award. It's broadly used to balance capacity of the work of the vendor and the quality and service provided. Is that a fair comment?
Through the chair, this is correct.
Sorry, John, back to you.
So I guess my question has to do, so it was mentioned earlier that we probably have these maintenance checks more frequently than perhaps a private building owner. Is that correct? On the one hand, you said we're legislatively required to do checks, but the timing, I guess, is at our discretion. Is that correct? And if so, what is the timing?
So there's regulated schedule inspections. It could have been monthly, it could have, some of them could be every 6 months, it depends on the type of work being aligned up according to the legislative requirements. So there's also a 5-year inspection and annual and monthly inspections as well.
All right, and so, okay, I don't think I'm going to get the answer that I'm looking for. I really wanted to know, in terms of what we have decided to do as a corporation, whether or not these companies that are bidding have capacity to do more than 2 regions. We've decided, for some reason, to limit them to two regions. And it's not clear to me why. We've said it's a capacity issue. It all has to do with the frequency with which they inspect the buildings. And I don't see the data here telling me how often they're supposed to inspect the buildings, nor do I see the data that tells me what the company has told us their capacity is. So I'm going to leave that with you. I just feel that, in a vacuum of information, I'm making these awards.
So I think, sorry, go ahead, Brian. I've got a comment, but go ahead. Okay, just maybe wrap it. I think the nature of the fact that this is sort of permeates a number of awards, the sort of capacity question, as well as the quality of work, as well as the scale, maybe we can ask management as a follow-up item to sort of outline the methodology broadly in terms of how it's applied, because it's not applicable just to this sole award. So I think it'd be useful for the committee to sort of see a bit more of that how the methodology of capacity is sort of determined at a high level would be useful as a follow-up item, and we can take it from there as opposed to this specific. Go ahead, Brian.
My question is, based on our discussion in camera, would it not be appropriate just this 3+1+1.
I don't think, to be frank, I don't think we lose anything with the 3+1+1 in that if market conditions are such, it's just TCHC's advantage only. So, and I think what we discussed was adding on to this approval that on this contract, when the appropriate time is at year 2.5 or 2.2, to come back with a recommendation on whether an RFP makes sense or not, and we can discuss it at that time. I don't think we lose. So we're going to get that check back before the end of the 3 years regardless, and I don't think we lose anything by having the +1.
Based on the fact that this is costing us more money, based on our previous discussion, I would feel that we should do a tender at 3 years, assuming it doesn't impact on the 1+1, but I would feel that we're penalizing ourselves.
Any other comments?
I think I'm with the chair's recommendation on this. Like, I appreciate that we want to go to a full RFP on year 3, but I mean, there's time commitments that are to be made there, and you know, I don't know if we need to forcefully apply an RFP requirement. It could be brought up as an item, and if there is a review to be done and it's a discussion to be had here, and we feel it's on the fence at that point in time, I think we can make the recommendation. But I think if you're asking now, I mean, it opens up the discussion as to how much resources go into an RFP and how much time, and at least that's my concern. I don't want to burden the equation now, knowing we're 3 years away, and they may elect to do an RFP because they may believe market conditions are in the favor of TCH at that time. Anyways, that's my position.
Just my concern is probably 3 years from now, there's going to be a different group of people sitting around this table.
Very fair.
Any other comments or questions on this item? So we'll take it to a vote. Do we need to have that as part of the motion, or can that just be a management action item in terms of, well, one, the methodology, that can be a follow-up item, but just as it relates to, on this specific item, we'd like a recommendation in before the end of the third year, whether it's going to be an exercised option in the 1 year or a new RFP at that time.
So I think those are both action items that
Okay.
we'll record in the action item list. The one by virtue of the fact that it's an action that's going to be taken in 2 years' time will remain an action item for an extended period of time, addressing Director Smith's concern that there may be a different group of people on the committee at the time that that report comes back. But I don't think we need to incorporate it into a motion.
Okay. With that, can I have a motion to approve? Oh, sorry, John, do you have one more comment?
I just want to go on record as being opposed to the awards for each of these. So I don't need a recorded vote. I don't know how you want to record it, but I'm opposed to, it's going to go to the board, I know, but I just want to go on the record that it's, so it's not.
So you'll vote against,
Vote against, yeah.
Okay.
We have the actual motion, so we're totally clear on what we're.
Well, the motion is to approve, and there's 2 action items coming out of the discussion for management to incorporate going forward. So one action item is the methodology on the capacity and how that generally is sort of implemented. Second action item is prior to the expiry of the 3-year term to come back to this committee with a recommendation, whether it's an RFP or or the option.
So they're embedded in the motion.
Well, I think they'll be memorialized in the minutes and the action items for management. I'm comfortable that they are being recorded, if that's where you're going with it. Can I have a motion to approve? Thank you. So the second. Thank you, Brian. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Thank you. They're happening anyways. Don't worry. The non-voting matter. You negated those action items. What do we have next? That's it. Okay. So I guess a motion to adjourn? Can I have a motion to adjourn the public session? Thank you, Brian. Thank you, John. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Sorry, just,
Oh, now we're going to go into the camera.
so given our new process, we should adjourn the public session and return to the motion should address the fact that the committee is now going to close session.
Though we're going back to the in-camera session, and we haven't done the in-camera session yet.
Correct.
Okay,
So we're going to conclude the public meeting and enter closed session.
and enter closed session. All in favor? Thank you.